Beware of the quiet ones. Fiduciary relationships may not make as much noise as math, but it can sneak up and trip you up on your real estate exam. You absolutely need to get this right to pass. So we've prepared 15 tricky questions to help you practice and tackle what's coming your way. And there's more. I've got an unexpected study tip at the end of this video that will make learning these concepts way easier and faster. So stick around. Let's get started.
LexaWise, Real Estate Exam Prep.
All right, here's the challenge. I'm going to throw a question your way, and I want you to take a moment to really think it through. Don't rush. Let the answer sink in. After that, I'll reveal the correct answer and explain why it's the right choice. Ready? Let's jump into the first question. What is the primary responsibility of an agent toward their client? A. Deference. B. Respect. C. Loyalty. D. Mutual trust. Pause for a moment to consider it. Ready? Here we go. The right answer is C. Loyalty. An agent has several important duties to the principal, but the most important duty is loyalty. This means putting the client's needs and interests first. A fiduciary is a person who has a trusted relationship with someone else, often managing their money or assets carefully for them. Here's the next tricky question. Rachel previously listed her property with Jones, but once their agreement expired, she switched to a different agency. Currently, Jones has a potential buyer who is keen on the property. Which of the statements below is accurate? A. Jones cannot disclose any offers received on the property while he was the listing agent. B. Jones cannot represent the buyer. C. Jones is a dual agent and can represent both. D. Jones is not permitted to provide the buyer with any information about the property's physical condition. Take a little time to think about it. Have you got it? Let's see. The right answer is A. Jones cannot disclose any offers received on the property while he was the listing agent. The explanation is simple. Jones must keep any offers he received on the property confidential while he was the listing agent. However, he is still required to share any information he knows about the property's condition, even though he's no longer the listing agent. Since he no longer represents Rachel, Jones can now represent the new buyer. Got it right? Awesome! But if not, don't stress. I'll share a game-changing tip at the end of this video that'll make learning all this way easier. Stick around and you'll see exactly how to crush it. The third one. If seller Mario allows buyer Matt to believe that broker Louis is representing him, it is an instance of which type of agency relationship? A. Agency by ratification. B. Ostensible authority. C. Agency by assumption. D. None of the other options are correct. Take your time. All set? Let's find out. The answer is B. Ostensible authority. Why? Because ostensible authority happens when a third party believes there's an agency relationship between a principal and an agent because of the principal's actions. For example, if a broker acts like they're the seller's agent and the seller doesn't correct that impression, and the broker helps make a sale, the broker will likely be considered to have ostensible authority. Next, the obligation of full disclosure as a fiduciary duty mandates that the agent of the seller must: A. Tell the seller anything that might be useful in negotiations. B. The agent must comply with all of the seller's legal instructions. C. Promote the property listed for sale regularly. D. Inform the purchaser about the probable price range that the seller would be willing to accept for the property. Give it a quick thought. Are you ready? Let's take a look. And the answer is A. Tell the seller anything that might be useful in negotiations. As part of the fiduciary duty of disclosure, the agent is obligated to relay any valuable information learned during the transaction to their client. Now this one, Oscar is in the process of house hunting and reaches out to a real estate agency. During the conversation, Oscar informs the agent, Brian, that he is interested in the area but is not yet prepared to sign any agreements. Brian is able to assist and accommodate Oscar in numerous ways, with the exception of which of the following actions? A. Brian is permitted to furnish information regarding mortgage interest rates and terms. B. Brian can pre-qualify Oscar for a mortgage. C. Brian is authorized to clarify the distinctions between buyer agency, seller agency, and dual agency to Oscar. D. Brian is permitted to furnish information regarding properties that are available for sale in the area. Take a moment. Got your response. Here's what it is. B. Brian can pre-qualify Oscar for a mortgage. Brian is not authorized to obtain confidential information about Oscar until they have established a buyer-agency relationship. Therefore, Brian is not permitted to pre-qualify Oscar for a mortgage, which would require accessing such confidential information. Now let's move on to the next question. A real estate agent tells a buyer that the roof of a property was replaced last year, even though the agent knows it was replaced 5 years ago. This false statement would most likely be considered A. Constructive fraud, B. Misrepresentation, C. Conversion, D. Commingling. Consider it for a while. Ready? Here we go. The right answer is B. Misrepresentation. It occurs when an agent provides false or misleading information about a material fact. It can be intentional, negligent, or even innocent, but in this case, the agent knowingly gave incorrect information. This violates the fiduciary duty of disclosure and can lead to disciplinary action or liability. Constructive fraud usually involves unintentional conduct, while conversion and commingling relate to mishandling of funds, not property facts. Next question. Which of the following is a fiduciary duty that requires an agent to protect any deposits entrusted to them? A. The duty of accounting. B. The duty of obedience. C. The duty of competence. D. The duty of disclosure. Think it over. The correct answer is A, the duty of accounting. The agent is required to maintain records and provide evidence of anything valuable that has been entrusted to their care. This includes marketing fees, deposits, and escrows, among other things. Next, owner Bill informs his listing broker, Edgar, that he wants to sell his house immediately and is willing to accept $450,000. However, Edgar tells potential buyer Brandon that Bill is experiencing financial difficulties and may accept a much lower offer, possibly as low as $420,000. Bill eventually agrees to a $420,000 offer from Brandon. In this case, broker Edgar is guilty of A. Unethical behavior and a violation of the fiduciary responsibility. B. Breaching the fiduciary obligation to buyer Brandon. C. Nothing, since his job is to find a buyer no matter what. D. Unethical behavior, but it may not necessarily be a severe breach of broker Edgar's fiduciary obligation to Bill. Think it over. Got it? Here's the answer. A. Unethical behavior and a violation of the fiduciary responsibility. In this case, broker Edgar is clearly breaking his duty to the seller by sharing important information without permission. This goes against the rules that realtors must follow. However, if the seller, Bill, was truly having financial problems and had given broker Edgar permission to share that information with the buyer, then it wouldn't be a violation. Next one. In a scenario where Lexa is a real estate licensee with a buyer agency agreement, what is her relationship with the seller? A. It is a fiduciary relationship. B. It is an agent relationship. C. It is a customer relationship. D. It is a client relationship. Take a moment to think. Ready? Let's find out. If your response was C, it is a customer relationship, then you're absolutely right. It is very important to differentiate a client from a customer in real estate transactions. Unless there is a prior agreement, licensees are only responsible for representing one side of the transaction, which is the buyer in this case. The 10th question is, if an agent fails to find a buyer by the conclusion of the listing period. A. The listing is automatically extended for an additional 120 days. B. The agency relationship terminates. C. The listing price is reduced by 9%. D. The broker has the right to file a lawsuit for the recovery of advertising costs. Give it a moment. Let's see if you got it. The answer is B, the agency relationship terminates. Here's the reason why. Real estate agents operate under a special agency arrangement, meaning that they are engaged to fulfill a specific duty for their client. If the task assigned to the agent is not accomplished by the expiration date, the listing agreement lapses and the agency relationship ends. Now let's move on to the next question. What is the term for the relationship established when a written agreement outlines the duties of the principal and agent? A. Ostensible agency. B. Express agency. C. Limited partnership. D. Implied agency. Take your time. All set? Here's the answer. B. Express agency. The formalization of the terms of an agency relationship in writing is referred to as an express or expressed agency. Next, what is the difference between a selling agent and a listing agent in a real estate transaction? A. A selling agent represents the buyer's interests, while a listing agent represents the seller's interests. B. A selling agent represents both the buyer and seller in the same transaction. C. A selling agent represents the seller, while a listing agent represents the buyer. D. A selling agent represents the buyer or seller, depending on who hires them, while a listing agent represents the lender. Give yourself a moment. Got it? Here we go. The right response is A. A selling agent represents the buyer's interests, while a listing agent represents the seller's interests. A selling agent, buyer's agent, has a fiduciary duty to the buyer, negotiating the best terms and price for them. A listing agent has a fiduciary duty to the seller, marketing the property and negotiating the best terms and price for the sale. Moving forward, what is a dual agency in a real estate transaction? A. A type of agency in which the agent represents both the buyer and seller. B. A type of agency in which the agent represents multiple buyers or sellers. C. A type of agency in which the agent represents a buyer or seller and a lender. D. A type of agency in which the agent represents a buyer or seller and an attorney. Give yourself a moment. The correct answer is A, a type of agency in which the agent represents both the buyer and seller. Here's why. Dual agency is a type of agency in which the same real estate agent or brokerage represents both the buyer and seller in a transaction. Next question. What is a material fact in a real estate transaction? A fact that is not relevant to the transaction. B, a fact that only the seller is aware of. C, a fact that would affect the decision of a reasonable person in the transaction. D, a fact that is not legally required to be disclosed. Take a second. Ready to check? Let's go. The correct answer is C, a fact that would affect the decision of a reasonable person in the transaction. A material fact is a fact that would affect the decision of a reasonable person in the transaction and must be disclosed by the seller or their agent. And the final question? Dan is a licensed broker and Lark is a client who's selling his home. Dan finds a ready, willing, and able buyer who makes an offer that Lark accepts in writing. However, Lark later has a change of heart, decides to withdraw his home from the market, and cancels the sale. Which of the following statements is true regarding Lark's action? A. Dan is entitled to his full commission based on the accepted offer. B. Dan is permitted to retain the buyer's deposit. C. Dan is entitled to one half of his commission even though the property did not sell and may sue Lark if necessary. D. Since the transaction did not close, Dan is not entitled to his commission. Give yourself a moment. Got it? Here we go. A. Dan is entitled to his full commission based on the accepted offer. Although most people understand that brokers earn commissions when a transaction closes, they fulfill their main duty by finding a suitable and willing buyer. Because Lark met that obligation, he can present a strong legal argument to claim his commission. Congrats! You've made it till the end. Here's our quick tip. Use role-playing as a study method. Role-play as both the principal and the broker and act out different scenarios, like ending a relationship or dealing with dual agency. Physically acting out these situations will help reinforce the concepts in your mind. Have you tried this tip before? Drop a comment and let me know how it worked for you. And if not, what are you waiting for? Feel free to reach out if you've got any further questions. And that's all for today. Thanks for joining me until the end. If you want to keep practicing, check out LexaWise Exam Prep. The link is in the description below. And before you head out, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Keep studying smart, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Good luck.